You're sitting in a waiting room. Your phone is dead. There is nothing to look at but a beige wall and a clock that seems to be moving backward. Your skin starts to itch with restlessness. You feel it building in your chest, that low hum of irritation with no clear cause. You call it boredom. But the real answer is far stranger. Boredom is not the absence of stimulation. It is a alarm. It is one of the oldest warning systems your brain has, and it has been quietly steering the course of human history since before history existed. Think about that for a second. What if this feeling you spend your whole life trying to escape is actually one of the reasons your species survived at all? Psychologist Sandi Mann has spent years studying what boredom actually does to the brain. Her research found something counterintuitive. People who were bored before a creative task performed better afterward than people who weren't bored at all. Boredom didn't shut their minds down. It opened a door. Here is the mechanism. When your environment gives you nothing new, your brain doesn't go quiet. It goes searching. It starts generating its own stimulation, pulling up memories, stitching together ideas, running simulations of futures that haven't happened yet. Neuroscientists call this the default mode network. It switches on when the outside world switches off. Your ancestors didn't have phones to fill that gap. They had long stretches of nothing, hours walking, hours waiting for prey, hours sitting by a fire with no entertainment except their own thoughts. And in that nothing, something was happening. The brain was rehearsing, planning, imagining tools that didn't exist yet, routes that hadn't been walked, stories that hadn't been told. Boredom may be the quiet architect behind human creativity. Without it, would anyone have ever bothered to invent anything? But here's the twist. Boredom isn't just a creative spark. It's also a signal of misalignment. Psychologist John Eastwood, who has spent decades researching boredom at York University, describes it as the unpleasant feeling of wanting to be engaged in something, anything, and not being able to find it. It's not laziness. It's a mismatch between what your brain wants to be doing and what it's actually doing. That mismatch is uncomfortable on purpose. Discomfort moves you. It moved your ancestors out of the cave and toward the horizon. It moved them to experiment with fire, with tools, with new places to live. Boredom, in this light, isn't a flaw in human design. It's a built-in engine for change. So what would happen if that engine simply turned off? Imagine waking up tomorrow and never feeling bored again. No restlessness, no itch to do something else. Every moment, however empty, feels exactly fine. It sounds like relief. It might actually be a quiet catastrophe. Researcher Aaron Westgate, who studies meaning and boredom at the University of Florida, has argued that boredom acts like a compass. It points you toward what matters by making clear what doesn't. Remove the compass, and you don't get peace. You get drift. Without boredom, there's no nagging discomfort pushing you to call a friend you've lost touch with, learn a new skill, or leave a situation that's quietly draining you. The itch that boredom creates is often the only thing that gets you off the couch and into a version of life you actually want. Take away the itch, and people don't necessarily become happier. They become stuck. There's a reason solitary confinement is considered one of the most psychologically destructive punishments humans have ever devised. It isn't just isolation. It's boredom with no exit, no end point, and no ability to channel it into anything. Studies on extreme boredom show it can produce the same physiological stress markers as fear. Your body doesn't always know the difference between dread and nothing happening at all. So boredom, in small doses, sharpens you. In overwhelming doses, it can break you. The species that survived wasn't the one that eliminated discomfort. It was the one that learned to listen to it. Now think about what modern life has actually done to that ancient alarm system. You almost never feel bored anymore. Not really. Not for long. The moment that itch appears, a screen is already in your hand. The default mode network barely gets a chance to switch on before something cuts it off. A notification, a video, a feed that refreshes itself before you've even finished the thought. This is the strange part. You haven't eliminated boredom. You've just gotten extremely efficient at running from it. And in running from it constantly, you may be quietly switching off the very system that used to generate your best ideas, your boldest decisions, your sense of what you actually want. Some researchers now believe a generation raised on constant stimulation may be losing something measurable: the capacity to sit inside discomfort long enough for it to produce anything. Not because boredom disappeared, because it never gets the chance to finish its job. Here's the question worth sitting with. If your ancestors' boredom built fire, language, and the first tools, what is yours building, now that you almost never let it run? Maybe nothing. Maybe the next idea you needed, the next shift you were supposed to make, the next person you were supposed to call, is sitting on the other side of 5 unfilled minutes you haven't allowed yourself in years. So tonight, when that familiar itch shows up, the one that makes you reach for your phone without thinking, try waiting. Not forever, just long enough to feel it. Long enough to let your mind start its old, ancient search. Because that itch was never your enemy. It was always trying to move you somewhere. The question is whether you've forgotten how to follow it, or whether, sitting in that beige waiting room with a dead phone and a slow clock, you're about to remember.